Hi, this is Masenya of Masenya Attorneys Incorporated, a law firm based in Centurion, Republic of South Africa. We boast 24 years of legal practice in the areas of commercial and tax laws. My professional team and I have over the years proved great success in assisting numerous clients with a myriad of commercial and tax matters involving millions of rands. We are skilled, experienced, qualified, and have the capacity to assist you. Email us at clients@cntlaw.co.za or call us 011-318-6592 or 084-383-7747. All consultations are strictly by appointment.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me right here in Solomon's Temple. I am Solomon Izangisham's Uncle Solomon. Great to be with you wherever you're watching from. Please make sure you drop your location. Let's know where you're watching from. And thank you so much for joining me here. Here we get to investigate, interrogate, and also put facts all out for us to consider. As a church, where are we and how are we doing? Very important. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you subscribe to Uncle Solomon immediately, and make sure you also click on the notification button just when you are ready. So anytime we come on, you're going to be here. I see quite a lot of you guys here already. There's Suleiman Jobe watching all the way from Spain. Thank you so much. Like I said, please guys, drop your location. Let's know where you're watching from. How was your Sunday yesterday? Tell us a little bit about it. But the most important thing that we're going to be talking about now is the issue of the commercialization of the church / the role of the CRL Rights Commission / the role of prophets, pastors, apostles, and bishops. This is an issue that has been going on for close to 10 years right now. We've seen so many abuses within the church, and I've been talking about them here back to back. Financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, even spiritual abuse. We've seen that over and over. So the church in South Africa, outside of South Africa, there is a problem. And I feel the church has been given the right time and amount of time to deal with this problem, to create some sort of an accountability platform where when we see pastors and prophets quoting scriptures out of context just because they want to abuse people, we will call them to order. But we haven't seen that yet lately. Now, the CRL Rights Commission recently constituted a Section 22 committee that would go out, consult, and create some sort of a code of conduct for how we can govern ourselves. Is the CRL Rights Commission involved in this? Those are some of the questions that have been out since Thursday when this Section 22 committee was inaugurated. Is the CRL trying to control the church? Matter of fact, is the government trying to control the church through the CRL Commission? Is the CRL trying to tell the churches what to preach, what not to preach, control the theology and the doctrines of so many churches? That's the big questions. And to just discuss that with me today, I have in the studio the chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission herself, Mrs. Thoko. Why am I saying your name today that way? Let's just move. Sorry?
Mkwanazi
Xaluva. So, full house here. Thank you so much for joining me here to have a discussion. Thursday was a very important day for the CRL Commissions and its mission to promote and to protect the rights of religion, linguistics, and culture. And Thursday, you put together a Section 22 committee with religious leaders from so many different Christian religion, that is. The South Africa Council of Churches was well represented. TISA, the Evangelical Alliance, leaders from ZCC, from Shembe, from the Nazarene, from Baptist, they were all there. Now, this committee in itself, how did we get here? Just to give us a bit of a background on how we got here.
Well, the CRL Rights Commission is mandated to promote and protect the rights. Let me focus on Christians today. The rights of the Christian community. So way back around about 2014, 2013, when things were going very wrong in terms of what was being reported in the media, people being sprayed with doom, people being asked to eat snakes, etc., etc. We all remember what was then part of the narrative. Not that things have changed that much. We're being told that in the problematic churches, people are no longer allowed to take videos of what is happening in church because that's how they feel they got into trouble, because their people were recording what was happening. But then we went to Parliament with certain proposals way back in 2017. Parliament then had the other side, you know how democracy works. And then Parliament came up with its own recommendations. So we're starting now based on what Parliament has decided. I know people are being encouraged to look at what we proposed in 2017. We are saying once people who are elected democratically decide how you move forward, we abandon whatever proposals we had. And we're hoping the religious sector will abandon whatever proposals they had and to then take what the Portfolio Committee on COCTA said should happen in 2018 on the 14th of February. So we're starting our discussions in 2025 based on those recommendations from the Portfolio Committee. And we're not saying this is what we wanted, so we're sticking to it. We are saying democratically elected people advised us how we should move forward. And that's what we're putting on the table now.
Yes, I have one of the documents here from the Parliament, actually, that just the report on the Parliament Committee on COCTA, that is on the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities on the commercialization of religion and abuse of people's beliefs. It was dated here on the 14th of February 2018, like you rightly said. One of the observations that as a commission you saw in getting here, some of the observations, the findings you had when you had hearings, across the country and spoke to different people, you discovered that there is no comprehensive database of religious leaders and places of worship available. You also discovered and saw that there was a high number of unregistered religious institutions. Also, there was a high surge in the number of both local and foreign leaders. The depth of worshippers who were using faith products and defaulting on their chronic medication was high, which is very evident in my journalistic work. Also, I've seen that. And there's financial abuse of worshippers. Some churches directed threats to worshippers who did not pay for a prayer. Some demanded cuts for successful business deals prayed for. Oh, wow. I hadn't seen much of that, but it's very evident. The entrepreneurial religious organization and challenges of return of investment, lack of financial management and good governance structures, lack of participation of women in religious practices, cult-like religious organizations, children's not allowed to attend school, as school curriculum was labeled satanic, unconventional preaching styles, congregant made to eat grass, snakes, drink petrol. There was a lack of training, peer support, and understanding of legislation and legal procedures in the registration of religious institution. And finally, lack of monitoring and peer review mechanism like in other professions. So there's a line of problems there. And all you're trying to get to is to say there needs to be some sort of accountability and transparency, isn't it?
What we're saying is that the Constitution says to the CRL Rights Commission, protect these Christians. Basically, how do we protect people from the long list you've just read? Because no one can dispute that it's happening. All those things are happening. And when the Constitution says to the CRL Rights Commission and the CRL Act says, protect these people, the Act even goes further to say, do anything that is feasible for you to protect these people. We have come up with what we think is a solution that is constitutionally sound, that will can be tested. If people want to take this to the Constitutional Court, we're saying it's a free country. But what we're saying is we've thought about it. We've looked at the law. We've looked at the CRL Act. We've looked at the Constitution. And we have said doing nothing is not an option. A lot of people who are opposing this are not putting anything on the table. They're actually saying, they're saying there are enough laws. So basically, when you say that, we are saying we want the status quo to be maintained. And what we're saying is that we hear the voices of people who are suffering. The status quo cannot be maintained. When people object to something, I expect them to say, here is a better option. When you say there are enough laws, tell me what law exists against anyone feeding people grass in the name of Jesus Christ. If you can answer that for me and say, well, Jesus Christ said this and this in Matthew chapter 5, I will listen to you. But if you're just saying, well, there are enough laws, let them go to the police station, it's probably because you don't understand the trauma of people and how people who have been traumatized do not want to go to the police station as a first option. So what people are busy saying is there are enough laws, just don't disturb this ecosystem. We're fine here. You are the only one who's not fine with your people who are crying out there. Tell your people to quickly go to the police station and leave us alone. I am saying, and the CRL Rights Commission is saying, that is not an option.
So now you have a situation where we're looking at, for the CRL Rights Commission, they've observed the church, researched and investigate and found out there's actually some very criminal activities going on, which is against the human rights of the congregants or against the, not adhering to the Bill of Rights. And maybe because of the ignorance of some of these congregants or helplessness, as you may, because I know a lot of them have reported some of these cases to the police and nothing came out of it, because some of these pastors will go behind the scene and influence the police in discontinuing the investigation or in just telling the victims that, you don't have enough evidence, so there's no way we can continue. But we have a situation in church. I'm a strong believer that there is a lot of criminality that's going on in the church by leaders, and we have to accept that. We have to accept that the church has really drifted away from its mandate, which is to protect the vulnerable. But now people come in, it's become, like you rightly said, it's been commercialized. And looking at the examples of Jesus going into a temple, where the temple there was buying and selling, they turned it into a marketplace. What did Jesus do? He took a whip, and chased everybody out. So there is definitely a place of being very straight and brutal in trying to solve these problems. But in the midst of that, you had actually said this several times, and I would quote you, where look, you said, why shouldn't the church have some sort of a code of conduct? Because the medical profession, doctors have one. The law profession, lawyers have one. If I bring my child to the hospital and the doctor didn't do a good job in his, prescription or surgical practices, I'm not going to take that issue to the police. First, I will have to take it to the health regulator, and report it there. So they could investigate. And at the end of it, you would know if there's a case, is it civil or is it criminal? Then you take it and put it there. And that is what you and the CRL Commission is proposing, isn't it?
You see, we're proposing this because we've spoken to the victims. We've spoken to their relatives. You are saying a lot is criminal that is happening, but there isn't that much activity from the police. Part of it we discover, you see, I will quote something that was already in the public space. There were two girls from the same family who were in the Omotoso case.
Right.
Their mother tried everything under the sun to get them out of that house. As a mother, she felt something wrong was happening to her kids. She went to the police station. She went to the radio station. I've never seen a woman fight so hard for her children. May her soul rest in peace. And I spoke to her at some point and I said, what would have happened if you had a place you could go and report this particular individual? Because all she got from the police was, how old are your kids? Oh, they've turned 18. Okay, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. They're there because they want to be there. So this went on for quite a while. And I always said, in memory of this woman, if there was a forum, a council, a peer review mechanism that she could have gone to report that something unusual is happening in that church, that man would have been stopped much earlier and a lot of victims would have been saved. So when people say to me there are enough laws, I always say it's because you've never spoken to a victim.
That's right.
You're theorizing. Yeah. Your theory is that tell your people, go to the police station, man, don't waste our time. Don't disturb us here. Mm-hmm. You see, I'm always surprised at how little empathy these religious leaders have for victims. Their theory is, oh yes, we're with them. We feel sorry for them. Don't feel sorry for them. Act to protect them. Right. They're willing to say, oh yes, we sympathize with the Omotoso victims. We sympathize with this one. But they've never moved even a centimeter to do anything to protect victims. And as the CRL Rights Commission, we're saying, we hear those victims. We know their names. We know their faces. We know their struggle. And you are telling us there are enough laws. We are telling you those laws are not working. We need a place where people can say, religious leaders, Pastor so-and-so is doing this and this and this to me. Because the first thing they are told is that if you go to the police station, your parents will die. Your relatives will die. And they go to these churches because they think the man of God or the woman of God is powerful enough.
Right. Yeah.
So these threats will be realized. If they
Yeah.
go to another religious forum, they can ask for prayer so that that threat doesn't happen. And in the interim, we are told there are enough laws in this country. I hope I won't hear any religious leader coming to me or coming anywhere to say there are enough laws, because they don't know how these laws work. Their best example is always the Doom pastor was found guilty. They were not there. I was there. I gave evidence. So some of us are not full of theory. We know how hard it was to pin him down. And we know, unfortunately, you got a fine. And who paid the fine at the end of the day? It's the victims who were
The
being sprayed
victims.
with doom.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, let's not see victory where none exists. I know some of them quote the Doom pastor as a very good example. And I always say to them, it's because you're full of theory, you're not part of it. And I've said to them, there are cases that are running right now. We're attending those cases as the CRL Rights Commission. We've met with the victims in Cape Town, in Khayelitsha. Those pastors in Khayelitsha were not part of the court case because they do not care that much about those victims. We do care. We know them by name. We know their struggles. We know how many years it took for them to build up the courage to go to the police station. And they are saying, in the meantime, let them suffer until they're strong enough. You know, they must stop being weaklings.
Yeah.
They must build up the courage, go to the police station and
Which is
tell
not
the
easy.
policeman there or policewoman, actually, this has been going on for 4 years now. I'm being raped by this pastor, and see how ridiculous that sounds to the policeman sitting there. And
Yeah.
I think people must stop saying there are enough laws in this country. There aren't enough laws to deal with the kind of things that are happening.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know, I think a lot of people have never been in the lives of some of these victims. You know, you've listened to them so many times and over. You've been there in their homes, in court, at the police station. I've gone through the same thing. So my perspective, my reality of a victim is totally different from reality of somebody who would sit in front of their laptop and phone and just keep commenting without really experiencing the pain and the manipulation that goes on there. You know, and one of the things that you always hear about people say is, you know, the CRL chairperson is against Christianity. Why is she just focusing on the church? How about the people who are in the Sangomas or the Buddhists and there's actually a question here from Sarah. She said, what about other religion? Are you targeting Christian church?
Sarah, yeah, I hear your question. We said we'll start with Christians and then move to Muslims and then move to African traditional religion and then move to Rastafari, Baha'i, etc., etc. We want each religion to come up with its own solutions because the problems are not the same.
Right.
So this week, before the end of the week, the CRL Rights Commission will be announcing the work we'll be doing with the Muslim community in terms of some investigations that will be happening there, etc., and working out a way forward. So all religions are involved, but also there's the story of what about circumcision? People who are in the sector would know that there's the Customary Initiation Act that was passed in 2021. There's also the Traditional Health Practitioners Act that was passed way back, I think, 2009. And there's now a Traditional Health Practitioners Council. So already the council is there to look at Izangoma and other traditional health practitioners. So people have a theory of you starting with Christians because you're an antichrist. I want to declare upfront, I'm a full-on Christian. I was born in the church. I was baptized. I was affirmed confirmation at the age of 16, and I'm still in the Methodist Church. So I'm not sure people know things about me that I don't know about myself. I'm a
No,
full.
they actually said you are a Sangoma, so I'm still
Yes.
trying to clarify that. You remember that one time, right?
You see, I would be proud if I were Sangoma because it would mean my ancestors have seen something in me. Unfortunately, my ancestors have said nothing. It's only the pastors and the religious leaders who have heard something from my ancestors. And I would like to disabuse them of thinking my ancestors would talk to them before they talk to me. I don't know what calling they're talking about. My ancestors have never called me to any higher, other thing. They left me as a Christian. My mother, my father, my grandmother know me as a Christian, and I'm still a Christian. Where that comes from, I always ask myself, I wonder who started this nice rumor, because I know nothing about it. So when you want to attack someone, I always say, an insult is when you say something that is not true. Otherwise, it's not an insult.
That's right.
So when you want to insult someone, although being a Sangoma is not an insult, but when you say to someone who's a Christian, no, she's not a Christian, actually, she's Jewish. It's not correct because you are now assigning a religion to me that I'm not part of. Hopefully, Solomon will be able to clarify this thing to people that I've never trained even for 1 week and absconded or something. I don't know anything about being a Sangoma. I've read about it for the past how many number of years.
Yes. That's why I had to bring this question up because, people have that's what is sold to people. I've interacted with you several times in the last 6 years or so, or I've been slightly longer. And knowing you, there is no trace of your alliance with being a Sangoma, and knowing who you are. And so you put that sort of narrative out there just to discredit the person. Obviously, I do not agree with what the person is saying. If I attack the person instead of the issue, just maybe he's going to deflate and give me some sort of influence. I'm going to be asking you a few questions. People are asking some of the questions. We're going to get to this. So the peer review will be above the law. Would the peer review be above the law, the Constitution of South Africa, above the Bill of Rights or human rights of individuals? That is like pastors and bishops. Is this all about trying to control the church? I think this question is saying that.
I think no one wants to control the church. You see, when things are going wrong, you need answers that are constitutional and legal. This peer review mechanism that was a self-regulation mechanism that is part of the resolutions of recommendations from the portfolio committee. They would not come up with the recommendations that are unconstitutional and illegal. You don't expect a portfolio committee of people who have been democratically elected to come up with a proposal that is above the law. Eventually, when the peer review mechanism is set up, our wish and hope is that whatever decisions are taken from there, like from anywhere else, they are reviewable. You can take them to court. you can take those decisions up to the Constitutional Court. So we are a constitutional democracy. Nothing is above the law.
All right. That's clear. Andre here from Cape Town says, if the church does what we are supposed to do with these leaders, then there wouldn't be a need for the CRL to regulate us. Instead, the church more often than not choose to hide and cover up certain people's crimes and want to use grace, mercy, and forgiveness to justify it, while the victims are still being victimized and perpetrators are put on pedestal. Very true statement there. And there is also one from Parko. Parko says, I love this woman. Anyway, there's so much love for you there. Listening to you. And there was a question here from I will be taking because there's so many questions. I'll be taking the questions as we go along. But I want to bring to your attention, I think this is something that we need to clarify. I actually had wanted to start with it, but I'm going to play this video of, I think it was a 2022-23 interview you did with the ENCA, or is it SABC News, in court during the Timo Motor trial. I think it was one of the days that Cheryl Zondi was testifying, and you said something which became a very popular soundbite around the church. You saying nobody, if somebody says they hear from God, they must be taken to a psychiatric hospital. But let's just hear it, because I would want for you to give us context. What do you mean by that? Because it's easy to misunderstand or miscommunicate. You would say something and I would think, this is what she meant, but maybe something totally. But let's watch the video first.
Return to the church, but Defence Advocate Peter Doberman questioning her very relentlessly about the reasoning, and also saying that if you return to the church, you knew very well that you would be sexually molested again, you would be raped, and you took that chance. And we saw Zondi saying, yes, she did take that chance, but that she was just afraid of Timothy Omotoso. But Peter, with me right now, I also have with me the chairperson of the CRL Commission, Ms. Thoko, Xaluva, and I just want to chat to her about her, sitting in on the proceedings and what she thought of the trial so far. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, you've sat and you've listened to Zondi give her testimony, but also to the Defence Advocate Peter Doberman cross-questioning her. Just in terms of the Commission, what is the Commission doing in making sure that witnesses such as Zondi, young girls who have been sexually molested in churches, that they get the help that they deserve?
Part of what we do is the Constitution says we must protect the rights of religious communities. Part of what we do. But what we've done is to go beyond that, to say there's a crisis happening within Christianity especially, and that there's a lot of spiritual, emotional, and sexual abuse. We did our research, which we finalized in 2017, that looked at commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's beliefs, because we realized that people believe in God. You go into a church situation believing in God, and then someone else exploits that and abuses that, and abuses you spiritually, financially, emotionally, and physically, and sexually. And we've said we need a system where people who find themselves in these situations can go to a peer review mechanism where the peers, because most people don't want to go to the police. We've had to work through a lot of others who said, we're here to tell you that my pastor has been abusing me, saying to me, if I sleep with him, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get this and this in my life. And I can't now go to the police about it. It's part of the spiritual and emotional and physical and sexual abuse that you find in some of the churches. You find that people get into this situation simply because they believe in God. And we're saying the abuse of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the church itself must fight this thing. We need to hear the voices of the religious sector supporting the victims beyond us. Because the narrative in this country is that Xaluva creates these victims. They are not there. This is proof beyond reasonable doubt that all these young people are ready to come forward. It hasn't been easy for them. It's been a hell of a roller coaster, and we're hoping that the criminal justice system will take that into consideration.
Now, a lot of the religious sectors have come out saying that, these mushroom churches, so to speak, half of the time the pastors are not ordained. Just looking at South Africa and looking at foreign pastors who are preaching in the country, we see cases where pastors have forced the congregants to eat rats, to drink petrol for healing, for blessing. When you look at this case of Timothy Omotoso and, the allegations that he sexually molested these young girls. Clearly, this is not the only isolated cases. There are many others. Why do we see our young woman falling victim to this? Why do we see, when we were listening to Zondi, she was saying that she was enamored by the pastor. She didn't want to defy him. She was afraid of him. Why do we see our young woman falling into this trap?
It's part of the abuse of people's beliefs. When someone says, God said, God is telling me this, you find that even now there are people who still believe in him, who still believe he's a man of God, who still believe he can interact with God at many levels. And if you are young and you are desperate to sing, and you are promised that you'll be singing with Beyonce, with everyone, and you believe that I'm coming into this holy space because I'm going to be blessed by God, and because I'm blessed by God, I'm going to have all these wonderful things happening in my life. It is extremely difficult to extricate yourself from that, because you are psychologically in it, we are emotionally in it, we are spiritually vested in it, and we tend to underestimate the spiritual part of being in a congregation, of being part of this holy family where good things are going to happen. And we're saying we need as a nation to start educating our people, both the young and old. We are, as the CRL Rights Commission, looking at a national public awareness campaign. We're fundraising for it. We're hoping we'll get funding from the donors. We've approached the National Lotteries Commission, for instance, and other donors to say, let's educate our people that no one talks to God. Let's just put it as bluntly as all that. If someone says to you, God was talking to me, tell them to go to the psychiatric ward. Because if they say God is talking to them, and calling them and telling them this is going to happen, I've got all the power, I can curse you, I can make you die just by saying so, because God listens to me, no, you're in trouble. And
so that's the big question. I saw quite a couple of pastors using this clip without the context, and to understand the context, I actually have to first listen to the question from the journalist, which was also a very contextual question, and also listen to your statement after you had said, if a pastor, if a prophet tells you this, they hear it from God, for you to do this, for you to do that, then they have a problem. Let's listen to it just before you give your opinion again.
That no one talks to God. Let's just put it as bluntly as all that. If someone says to you, God was talking to me, tell them to go to the psychiatric ward. Because if they say God is talking to them and calling them and telling them this is going to happen, I've got all the power, I can curse you, I can make you die, just...
Yeah, so very contextual. It's evident. What, in that sort of scenario, what were you trying to communicate? That people seem to say, no, you can't hear from God. So for a lot of Christians, charismatic Christians say, no, we have the Holy Spirit. We hear the Holy Spirit direct us. But this was a very contextual state, isn't it?
You see, evidence had been led in this court about this particular case. And I always say you can crop it, you can do whatever you like with it. One of the very critical things was that he would say, God said, you must sleep with me. And after every action, they would have to recite a certain portion of the scripture.
Yeah.
Because this is all from God. Sitting here today, I can tell you, God had nothing to do with this man's things. Whatever he was hearing in his head was probably some illness that he needed to be cured from. The God I pray to, the Jesus Christ that I know, would never say to a child, you must sleep with this man. And I would like to say, we need to be clear about these things. God would never say to any religious leader, go tell that child that she must sleep with you. Because then it's not the God that we know. Then we are probably hearing voices. Because God would never, ever want you to be abused because of your beliefs. You believe in God, you believe in Jesus Christ, and suddenly you're being told, sleep with me, and if you don't, your family will die and this will happen to you. And if they heard God saying that, I do dare say even today, that's a psychiatric illness. If you heard God saying, if you don't do this, tell them, if they don't do this, they're going to die. Their family will die and this will happen to them. We need to be very discerning about these things. And we need to begin to say, let's make things easier for our people who are trying to find their feet in the religion. And they're going there wholeheartedly. And they're getting abused by the religious sector. And in the meantime, they want me to say, oh, yeah, Omotoso was hearing from God. I wouldn't say that even today. I truly believe the man had some kind of psychiatric illness. He was hearing voices, judging by what he was telling those girls. If you believe Omotoso had no psychiatric illness, then I don't know what you want to call it. I still, even today, say, in that particular case, I had a lot of psychiatric illness going on with the men of God, so-called. So I know this has been used because I don't believe in Jesus Christ. I don't believe in whatever. Crop them out of context for whatever agenda you want to push. But the reality is, anyone who says to anyone, God said, you must sleep with me. God said, your family will die. God said, you want a job, sleep with me. God said, you want to be cured from this illness, sleep with me. That's psychiatric behavior right there. The God I pray to would never say that.
So you are a big believer that God still speaks to us, but not for us to go and commit such criminal and atrocities that are not
I
right.
truly believe God speaks to all of us, his children. He might speak to me, he might speak to you. But I think once people abuse that, you see, that's why we call our study commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's beliefs. Because then it's the abuse of that belief that God speaks to you. That then reaches a stage where I'll tell them God said this, I'll tell them God said that. You will only get a job if you bring everything that you have to the church. God said you must stop taking your chronic medication and buy holy water that will heal you. The God I pray to would never say that, because the medication you have is created by God as well. So people use the God said theory to abuse people financially, to abuse people sexually, to abuse people spiritually. So again, I say, the God I pray to would never ask people for all of that. If you're hearing him saying that to you, then there's something wrong with you, man of God, woman of God. You are hearing voices, you need help.
So good to know that. And that really put into context that very popular viral video of yours that I was very disappointed to see people like Pastor Chris Matebula using it. Other people that you would expect that they know what's best, instead of going online and checking out the full context of it. So finally, let's move to the Section 22 committee. What is the mandate of the committee? How is the CRL involved with the committee? Is the CRL still a part of the committee, or you just created a committee based on a directive from COPTA and you hands off and just oversee? It's not left for the is it 22 or 24-man committee to now have dialogue? What is the mandate? Are they now the regulators? Are they given the mandate to go speak to community, churches, to try to find how they can create a better way to manage some of these abuses and commercialization?
Let me go back a bit. In 2017, we had our own proposals, late 2017, that we took to COCTA. Part of it was a peer review mechanism that each umbrella organization, people must belong to umbrella organizations that eventually would then have a national umbrella body that will determine these issues. COCTA came back and said, what we want is a self-regulation outside the system and a code of conduct that could be legislated. With this Section 22, we've brought in credible people from mega churches, from umbrella organizations, big umbrella organizations like the South African Council of Churches, like TIASA, the Evangelicals, and a whole range of others, yes. And we are saying we're using Section 22 of the CRL Rights Act that allows us to establish a committee of external people without the involvement of commissioners. So these are external people. We said our goodbyes on Thursday, and we said we're handing over to these religious leaders to do two things: to consult people throughout the country as to what mechanism will work in terms of finding a self-regulating mechanism, but also looking for a code of conduct that will be acceptable to Christians across the board. The only thing that this group will be doing is to consult and dialogue. So they're going to have dialogues throughout the country in all provinces, and those will be open to everyone in that area to attend, to discuss and debate and dialogue, and then agree on something. But we are not part of that. The CRL Commission will not be part of it. The Secretariat of the CRL will be involved in terms of booking venues, flights, accommodation, lunch, tea, coffee, those kinds of things. So it's mainly our administrative staff that will be helping them pull this thing together. Because in the past, the religious sector did try to do this thing and it wasn't possible because it was an unfunded mandate. So we are saying, because the Act and the Constitution says we must do all that is possible to protect, we are saying this is part of do all that is possible. We are out of it. A lot of people are still quoting what we said in 2017 because it suits their narrative. Those people have got clips that, oh, we'll license people, will do this, will do that. It was part of our 2017 recommendations to the Portfolio Committee. And they're taking us back there, although we've met with some of them and we've told them we are not there anymore. But because the narrative of remove Xaluva, the CRL wants to regulate religion, your freedom of religion is being violated here, they need the old videos. Anyone who plays a video to you, ask them how old is this video. If they give you a video from 2017, tell them, but the Portfolio Committee has ruled on this matter. Why are you going back there? Let's start with 2018 recommendations because that's where we should start. They said something, and all we're saying is we're making it possible for the religious sector to find themselves and to go back to Parliament. Others have said, you see, they're saying you must go back to Parliament. So it means there's going to be regulation passed. You can have a nice code of conduct that don't make people eat grass, don't make people do this. How are you going to enforce it now? It's a nice ladies and gentlemen's agreement that is not going to get you anywhere. Anything in a country like ours, a democratic country that is driven by the Constitution, has to be enforceable by law. You're not going to be beating them up there and forcing them to behave in a particular way. So all we're saying is that we're out of it. We will only come in when invited. But the CRL Rights Commission will not be part of the whatever is happening in provinces. If you're looking for my face there, hey, you'll find it very hard to find any commissioner there. We will not be there. These leaders who are credible. And I'll say it again, they represent over 45 million Christians of the 53 million Christians. So if people are saying, no, we're being left out, the provinces are calling. Go there, you'll have your say.
Yeah, I was actually going to get to that. But before that, I'm just looking at the terms of reference for the Section 22 committee that was recent. One of it, 3.2 says, it means that exercising of the right to practice religion, including the right to manifest religion, should not contravene other rights in the Bill of Rights, including the right to freedom of religion itself, right to human dignity and security of a person, as well as other rights such as health, etc. It further entails that religious rights should not be practiced in a manner that is illegal, unlawful, or harmful to human beings. So we are looking at you protecting, obviously, the rights of Christians. So in a way, you're doing this because you're on the side of Christians constitutionally, obviously, because they have rights, and those rights might be abused without their knowledge, just in the name of giving a prophecy, the name of prayer, and so many different ways. You know, so I totally understand that. And you spoke about the committee constituting so many great leaders, but part of the controversy or the question that some people are asking, like Chris McCokie here, is he said the committee has 8 people from Shembe Church. How is that fair? We decided that the delegates, who decided that the delegates were suitable? Why should leaders be imposed on the rest? And then just as a follow-up, there is one other question that I saw here. from Sibo who say, what criteria was used to select the so-called credible? What makes them credible? So we have leaders, and we have quite a lot of leaders. I was in the room there during the official launch, and you have leaders. So I don't want to even go into a theological debate saying I'm charismatic, you are Catholic, or you go to Shembe that we do not agree on. But we want the debate to be centered around our rights, abuse, which we can all agree with constitutionally. So some of the leaders that are there, like Chris was asking, it's like about 8 leaders from Shembe. Was there a criteria? Did the charismatics who are actually crying right now, did they put themselves forward? Were they willing to engage, and were they ignored, or there was just no leader? I know the South African Council of Churches is there, TISA, the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa, which represents a lot of charismatic churches also. And even the South Africa Council of Churches represents a lot of charismatic members also. They're part of that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, let me start with the issue about what they call the Shembe Church, the Nazareth Baptist Church. There are 5 groups, the Nazareth Baptist Church. One of the groups has asked for 4 alternates because they travel a lot since they service people around the country. Their Secretary General is their primary member with 4 others. So you find that most of them have alternates, and one of them even has a woman who is a member of the Section 22 committee. So
Right.
You think it's because of the numbers, but it's actually because of the alternates. When we break it down, you'd find that maybe there are only 8 members who are part of it. And then the issue of whether they'll ever find a common denominator. We're not discussing doctrinal issues. This Section 22 will not be looking at how you pray, and it's deliberately done that way, because how the ZCC prays and how Shembe prays and how the Roman Catholic Church prays, that is part of the SACC, the issues are so diverse. And why a diverse country? So the issue of doctrine, the issue of how you pray, how you preach, are never going to be on the table. The only thing we're talking about is the individual. I've said this many times. There's nothing wrong with the Bible. There's nothing wrong with the doctrine. It is the individual who must be called to order by their own peers, who should be saying to their peers, feeding people grass is wrong. And I was surprised that all these years, all these people are saying they're fighting for freedom of religion, and they're saying the Constitutional Court said no matter how bizarre your beliefs are, you have a right to hold those beliefs. They are misquoting deliberately what the Constitutional Court said. That was the case of Prince versus the Legal Practice Council. And Prince, being a Rastafari, was saying, I have a right to the holy herb because it's my religious beliefs. The Constitutional Court has never ruled on people feeding people snakes and grass and those things. But these people who say they are legal people will always quote these religious people. That even the Constitutional Court said, no matter how bizarre, the Constitutional Court never said you will be a Christian who does bizarre things. We're talking about Christians here. There's a doctrine, there's a limit. If you're feeding people snakes, it's not part of the doctrine. If you are going to say, okay, I'm a snake worshiper, I believe in snakes, in eating snakes, no one will disturb you. But if you're saying, I'm a Christian, then you fall into a doctrine. But I want to feed people snakes and grass and whatever. The Constitutional Court never went there. So I hope they'll never misquote the Constitutional Court again, because it's unacceptable to make it sound like the top judges in this country said feeding people snakes and telling people that sleeping with children is okay is what the Constitutional Court said. They never said that.
So that's definitely something that I think there is also it's also a huge opportunity to educate people. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of the Constitution in itself, how it works, how an organization like the CRL Rights Commission works in conjunction with the government and also with the people on ground. I think there's quite a lot of, from the pulpits of some of our churches, a lot is being said without proper research, not proper information is being given. We've seen the devastation that some church leaders, prophets like Timo Motosho, and a lot of them have caused to many families. They've destroyed families because they kept demanding financial seed in the name of prayer and prophecy. People would go and withdraw and get their pension money and straight up transfer it to a certain prophet or church. It's painful. Girls on the brink of suicide because a prophet had sexual engagement with her, manipulating her using scripture. Now, if you think we do not have a problem as a church, then you have to think again. And I posted something 2 days ago. I said a lot of the church leaders and churches that are out now trying to not to endorse what the CRL is doing, a lot of them never said anything when these pastors were abusing these young girls, or people are losing money. They never said anything. A lot of them never raised their voice. They never went to court. They never protested. I protested on the street, organized the march, and walked to the CRL Rights Commission. So there's a lot that the CRL Commission is aware of. There's a lot that people like me are aware of as an advocate that you are not aware of. For the so many people who are listening, there's a lot of pain that these guys are causing, and that if that is not a big problem enough, then we really have to rethink again in seeing how we can deal with this. Now, in closing, the Section 22 committee members are going to be gallivanting across the country, engaging church leaders, the churches, church members. How would you encourage us as a church to be involved? How would you encourage other pastors or prophets who are not totally embracing what this initiative, but for them to just give the committee a chance?
What we would ask, Solomon, is that give this committee a chance, go there and participate. Don't go there in order to destabilize and disrupt. Because we see on social media, there's a lot of disruption that is planned, marches that are planned. We are a democracy in terms of marches. I mean, if you want to march to the union buildings, I think as the head of a Chapter 9 institution, I support that because it's your right. We fought for these rights. People died for us to have these rights. Let's not abuse them. But I must say, Solomon, people will probably ask, why did I agree to this interview? It's probably because you've come a long way. Way back 2015, when people didn't know the name Omotoso, when people didn't know the name Pam, you stood up for those girls. Way back. Other people were not willing to stand up because it wasn't fashionable. It was okay to be screaming about the CRL wanting to do this. Would like to thank you publicly for standing up for those girls. Maybe individually, they've never had a chance to thank you. But on their behalf, those survivors of Omotoso, in spite of everything that has happened, we lost Pam in a very unusual way. She stood for those girls throughout her life until she died. So thank you to you. Thank you to Pam for standing up for those girls. And I always see that people think you just started with this thing way, way back. I remember I used to bring in other victims from other religious leaders to the CRL. Look what this pastor has done to this one, abandoned her with a baby. Look at this one, etc., etc. So let me thank you publicly for standing up for the victims without wavering, in spite of the pressure and insults.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to further engagement. Hopefully get you back here as this, I would say, great initiative. I've been waiting for an initiative like the Section 22 for a very long time because there's a huge lack of accountability. There's a huge lack of transparency. There is rampant abuse that is against the constitution of the land, and it's against the Bible, the scripture that we use. No matter how we try to justify it, it could never be justified. So I just want to say thank you so much for the time and for the great work that you're doing. Some people felt last time you left office, they were happy. Some of the Christians were rejoicing. I wasn't rejoicing. I know the depth of this problem, and we need a chairperson that would take it head on. Like, it's an urgent situation. It's very, very urgent. We need to put all hands on deck to deal with this, because if we don't, it's going to misrepresent the church. It's going to totally be an abuse of our constitution that is very much to protect every person, and the CRL for the good work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
So that's the CRL Rights Commission Chairperson, Thoko Xaluva. Just having that discussion. If you joined us much later, you could go and check out the beginning of the interview. She said so much about the role of the CRL. Guys, sometimes we can stay from a distance and allow our leaders to feed us with information. And who says your leader, your pastor is going to tell you the right information? You need to dig deep yourself and find out what's going on. Please, if you're a pastor, a prophet, a church leader, get involved with the CRL Rights Section 22 committee. Go there. Do not cause problems when you go there, but go there and disagree. Just maybe you can get some sort of clarity and understanding there. But I hope we're going to follow the examples of nations like Rwanda, who actually got to a place where they had to bring some sort of regulation, even educationally, where certain pastors, you're supposed to have a certain qualification theologically for you to be able to lead a church. I hope we're going to get there one day, because then we're not going to have anybody saying, God spoke to me, go start a church, right? God spoke to me, go do this, and that's just it. We have a problem. And if we are not ready to fix it, we must never blame the CRL Rights Commission. Instead, we must join hands and see how we can solve this problem together. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.